So one of the reasons why I made this channel was for me to be able to show my kids who I was when I was younger. I'm 24 right now, which in a few years time I'll most likely have you kids here with me, and I was kind of thinking that you might want to know how I was in primary school and secondary school and throughout my teenage life. And before I forget who I was back then, I'm only 24, it was only a few years back, I can remember it. So I'm going to tell you as a documentation of my teenage childhood life, who I was. I didn't really talk until I was about 7, 8ish, not really to anyone. My older brother and sister would talk a lot for me, they would answer for me, and I think because of that I didn't talk. Also, I was kind of shy anyway. This caused a lot of problems, but also gave me a lot of benefits. The problems being that I was really rubbish at talking, and communicating with people is horrible. Even sometimes now, I'm just horrible, especially in groups, not great at it. But what it did allow me to do is observe. Observing is one of my best powers. It allows me to scan the room and be very good at seeing someone and understanding them very quick. That doesn't mean that it's spot on every time, but it's pretty good. I heard a word called empath, and it's basically someone that's able to imitate an emotion of whoever they're facing, basically, or whoever they're talking to. They kind of take that emotion. I feel like that I've always been really good at that. As young as 7 or 8, I've been really good at being able to look at someone, understand them on a more of a deeper level. But I was so rubbish at this normal talk that everyone does, always terrible at. In primary school, I would hang out with Miss Elwood a lot of the time. She was a firm but fair person. We had our arguments, but in the end, an amazing teacher. Definitely a bit of a tough hand, but she taught me a lot. She taught me how to play 21, how to shuffle cards, how to deal cards, simple stuff. I was a kid, but it was these things that I learned from her more than anything. When I was 8, I struggled to draw the number 8. I would do 2 circles on top of each other. And I remember Miss Elwood had a previous student come back after they were about 18 to do work experience. And this person would sit with me and try for weeks, trying to teach me how to draw an 8. And I remember the very first time I ever drew it. And I did it kind of by accident. I did it, and this person that was with me teaching me, she blew up. She was like, oh my gosh, he did it, he did it, he did it. She was really happy, and I remember that emotion that I felt when doing that was one of those feelings of just pride, and that I could do something that made someone else feel that way. And I think obviously they were kind of proud that they were able to teach me, and I was just proud that I could do it, but also proud that I could make someone else happy by what I was doing, you know? The last few years of primary school were fairly easy, considering that I had Mr. Jerwood, Mr. Alton, Mr. DeWale, Mr. Wilkinson, Mr. Austin. I had a lot of teachers that taught me a lot of things individually, not just as a curriculum of school, but life lessons. At the time I thought that it was quite normal that they were teaching me certain life lessons, but actually I think they kind of realised that I was not really one for school, and maybe that hopefully by teaching me life lessons I'll go on to do something either a bit different or a bit more than others. Not more, but different, I think, more than anything, just a different path, which, if that's what they thought, it was definitely in my cards, if that makes sense. When I got to secondary school, I was pretty fat, very rubbish at socialising. I was fairly ugly. I had a really ugly haircut, and I got into a lot of fights. A lot of fights. Purely because at the start it was due to bullying, and because I was a hothead and I was a pretty good big kid for my age, it was very easy for me to fight back. So that stopped quite quick, luckily. And then later on it would be that other people were getting picked on, and because I just felt really bad for people that got picked on, especially people that were really good, I'd also then get into the fights with those people that were picking on these kids. And so I just loved doing it. It was something that really allowed me to express my emotions, obviously in a very physical way. Was it good? No, I would have 100% done things differently, but unfortunately that's who I was. I was very aggressive, very angry, and I took it out on a lot of people that at the time definitely felt like it deserved it. But again, if I could rewind time, I would never do any of that. But you live and you learn. That was who I was. In year 7 and 8, I would stop going to maths class because I didn't like the people. I would skip class quite commonly of classes I didn't like, ICT being one of them, art being one of them. Sometimes it was to do with the teacher, sometimes it was to do with the subject, but nevertheless, definitely a dumb decision. I didn't like art, I didn't like ICT, I didn't like English, I can tell you that. And now I'm sitting here, computer in front of my face, filming a video that I'm going to edit. I have an artboard here and I write most days. So it's pretty silly. I wish I could have actually gone back and studied as much as I could possibly could, even if it wasn't to pass my GCSEs or whatever. I wish I could have just taken notes on things that I felt that I liked. I did do that sometimes, but nowhere near more than I would have liked to have done. To be fair, I wasn't in the right headspace anyway. For most of secondary school, I was a warzy, I was a woozy, I was here, I was there. It was never about school, it was never about education for me. So, unfortunately, I didn't use it to the best of my benefit. What I was really good at was talking to people, and I am so lucky to have got some teachers that made a massive impact on my life, and they taught me a lot of things that I didn't get taught anywhere else. The list would go on for ages, so I'm not gonna start naming names. But a lot of teachers taught me a lot of life lessons. Even if I didn't necessarily get along with them, some of them really taught me things that allowed me to be the person I am now. I would often talk to teachers on a very personal level that I probably really shouldn't have, but because I was able to get information out of people very fluidly and I always wanted to help, I would end up always having these really deep conversations with teachers, and I would always try to help, even though I was so young and maybe I didn't know as much as I thought I did. I always thought I could help, and so I always tried, and in return they would help me, with things and understandings of certain subjects and whatnot, and I really, really appreciate it. I would say in school it was a very big split. You had half of the teachers that knew that side of me, and then you had the other half. Now, I wasn't necessarily naughty, not if you asked this side of the teachers, but I was very outspoken, and I was very strong in my beliefs. There were certain things that I would disagree with, and I would speak up, and I wouldn't be afraid to. And so I got quite a bad rap for that on the other half, the 50% here that didn't quite like me. I was definitely not the best student. Was I a naughty kid? I definitely could have been at times, but realistically, I was actually alright most of the time, I would say. I was never disrespectful, I was never rude, and if I did need to say something, it was definitely, I had always thought it through a lot of times before I said what I said. In year 8, I started to date girls, and that was a big mistake, guys, big mistake. If you are I don't know when you guys are going to be watching these, what age you're going to be watching these, but if you watch them earlier in your life, slow down. It's okay. You can wait. You know, it isn't. You don't need to rush into those things. I started to date and I broke a couple hearts. Got my heart broken a couple times. Definitely not a good thing to add to the mix of my life. Maybe if you have quite a normal upbringing or a good upbringing, maybe it'll be a little bit easier to handle those things. But for me, it was definitely something I should have left till later in life, because I feel like my having broke people's hearts, not on purpose, but it definitely made me feel like I was a bad person, and then my heart being broken is the worst. Heartbreaks are, especially when you're young and you're going through changes and things. When you have a heartbreak, it's like a different level of emotion. In year 9, I was about 13 and my dad got cancer, so your grandfather, and school kind of stopped for me. My mother had taken me out of school not long after or before it. I kind of forget, it was all a bit fuzzy, but I got taken out of school anyway. So it was kind of a fuzzy time. Most of my days were spent thinking about my dad or being with my dad. And luckily I got to be with my dad, because your uncle drove me back and forth. He just got his license and he would drive me back and forth from my dad's. And if it wasn't for your uncle, I probably wouldn't have seen my dad as much as I could have. And that made me, indebted to my brother for that. He really put a lot of time into it, a lot of love, and I have a lot of love for that action, But yeah, so I started to spend from about year 9, till the end of school, if I'll be honest, seeing my dad as much as possible. I wasn't taking any classes. My grades absolutely plummeted, even though they were probably not that great anyway. And my dad passed away just before my GCSEs. Now, just before my dad passed away, and I did my GCSEs, but I wasn't allowed to do any of them but my English and my maths. I think I maybe was able to do one science, but that was it, which was a really big letdown for me, because I took drama, product design, which is building stuff, food tech, cooking stuff, and history. I was pretty good at history. Food tech was good, but the teacher was rubbish. Product design, I was kind of natural at it, but I don't think I had good grades in it. But drama was something I was really good at, and I loved it so much. And unfortunately, I didn't get to take any of them. Also, my science was probably one of my strongest subjects. It was something that I never needed to study or revise. I kind of just got it. It just made sense to me. And I didn't realize at the time that that's actually quite a unique thing. Well, not a unique thing, but just to be able to just know something or kind of understand it as you're getting told it. I don't know. It's just how it felt with science. Science just made sense to me. I wasn't allowed to take biology or something like that. There was something additional to that I wasn't able to take, which is unfortunate. But my mum said to me, she said, Cam, if you go in there and you try, you're probably going to fail, right? But at least when you go to a college or, later on in life, you can explain the situation and show them that at least you tried. It's probably one of the best things my mum ever said to me. I ended up going in and doing my GCSEs, and honestly, I'll be honest, I don't think I did that bad, considering considering what was going on in my life, and considering I probably hadn't really been doing school for many years. I did pretty well, and that was a big surprise. I remember the day I got the results. Everyone was opening up, and the woman that I was dating at the time, she opened up hers and she got pretty much straight A's. She was the smartest in our year, and you matched up with a boy like me. I didn't want to open it up. I didn't want to open mine up, because I knew I knew it was going to be a fail anyway, and so I just didn't really care to open them up. But I did later, I think much later, I think it was months later. And I opened it up and I looked at it, I said, alright, cool, I put it to the side. But I remember going back maybe years later, and I looked at it, I was like, oh, yeah, I didn't do so bad actually. I did actually fairly alright. Safe to say I failed them all. But I came pretty close, which I was happy with. I was very happy with. Anyway, with that, I went into plumbing, and I didn't really want to do it, but it was suggested to me, and I thought, well, what else am I going to do? I have nothing to my name. I have nothing. So I started at level 1 plumbing, which takes you a year. I did it in 3 months. I moved on to the next year within the same year, and I finished before everyone else. So I did 2 years worth of work in one and finished before everyone else, and that was whilst I had been kicked out and just after my dad passed. And I remember being very proud of myself. I studied for the first time ever. It was the first time I ever revised. It was the first time that I actually paid attention, and I flew by. Absolutely crushed it. I was really, really good at it. And I was just so proud of myself. That's about the end of my education. I did a couple of things after, and I'll always be learning things, but when it comes to school, that was about my life. That was a big chunk of it. If I could go back now and do things differently, I definitely would have paid more attention in school, because what I was shown when I did what my dad asked of me, which was to get a trade, and I had applied that to my school, my school life, it would have been easy. Everything I ever did in school, I never once revised, I never once actually paid attention, yet somehow I took enough in to do pretty well in life. And if I would have paid attention, if I really would have put my head down, I would have done really well. But the thing is, I didn't have that structure to be able to come into school on 3 hours of sleep, stressed out the wazoo, and not been fed for about 2 or 3 days. Every single day. I just couldn't focus. I just couldn't do it. But that's no excuse for now. I have a nice home. I get my sleep. I'm fed. I don't have stress on me. I have no excuse now to sit here and run. And that makes me so happy. If my younger self could see me now, they wouldn't believe it. They wouldn't understand that this is who I turn into. They just wouldn't get it. Because I was always so self-critical. I was always down talking to myself. And in reality, I was a lot smarter than I gave myself credit for. You see, I'd got lied to by someone that should have never lied to me, constantly. And it made me doubtful of every single person. Most people I came across in my life would always say, oh, something about you, Cam. There's something special about you. You've got this. Oh, you're smart, you know that. Everyone I ever came across. And I always like, oh, they're just trying to boost this kid's self-esteem. That's what I think. But actually, if I take it back a notch and take that filter off, that filter I had on, of everyone's lying to me, they were just expressing what they saw, and it was everyone. And I wish I would have listened a little more. But hindsight is a bitch, so what are you gonna do? But that's who I was in school. Was I the smartest? No. Was I the good kid? Definitely not. But I always stuck on my morals. I always stuck on what I felt was right. And I always helped whenever I saw I could. That was me. At the start of secondary, I was a little hothead. That kind of phased out, luckily, especially when my dad was passing. It just, I don't know, it just kind of phased out. I got lucky. I'll see you guys tomorrow.